Let me. I'll take a drink, Josh. Are you ready, Josh? You ready?
I am.
You ready?
I'm ready.
You ready?
I'm ready. I think I might need to take her out really quick. I'm going to give that a shot.
Well, go ahead.
So, okay. I'll be back.
Alrighty.
Let's try this. Well,
Did you? That was fast. Holy cow.
that was a very definitive no. I stand at the back door with a leash. She just turns and walks away.
So who's training who?
Yeah, well, exactly.
My dogs have Diane trained. Like
Yeah.
They train, and she gives them a treat. It's like our hound dog walks over and like just gives her a look, maybe a little bit of a bark.
Yeah.
And I tell her, I'm like, don't succumb. And she'll jump up, and I'm like, he's training. He's not training. He's already trained you. I'm like, come on. She's like, well, it's time. I'm like, it's time because he's made it. He's made it treat time.
Yep.
It's funny. We can dive in and do this if you want.
Oh yeah, let me change the thing here. Hold please.
Nobody knows the trouble I've seen.
Do you find that no matter how much you spend on things for them,
for the dogs?
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing is, like, we get chew, like pretty expensive, like chew things, not chew toys, but chompers or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. Like on the package, it's like, it implies that it'll last forever, etc.
Yeah.
I wonder about River, but my dogs will go through. I mean, we'll give them a chomper, and like 2 minutes, they're gone.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. It's like, and I'm like, holy crap! If we continue to, and if we give them another chomper, they would eat another chomper.
Yep. Exactly.
We spend way too much on our, like, we get primo food.
Yeah.
Or whatever. What is it? Now I'm blanking. It doesn't matter, but it's got like wild wolves on the bags or something like that.
Okay, so I've seen that. Yeah.
So we get that food, but then we add like cold food. You get this deluxe real meat. People could eat it food. It's in refrigeration, and we mix those together. So I try not to like calculate how much.
I just move in?
Well, that's that, and then there's the treats.
Yeah.
And then on top of that is the vet stuff. You probably don't understand the vet. Like all of our animals are senior, Josh. So there's like normal wellness visits, and then they hit you with a senior wellness visit. I think when they hit like 7 years old or something like that. Prepare yourself, Josh. I don't even do. I don't have the courage to do a budget for how much we for how much we spend. On our, and we have 4, right? We have 2 dogs, 2 cats. It's amazing. Have you done vet stuff? Of course you have.
Yeah, we had to, get all the shots and all that stuff. And
well, aren't you amazed by the cost, or is it cheap? Have you found it?
It's been reasonable. Like I was prepared for it to be terrible because when I got the dog, my mom was like, you have to get pet insurance because you're going to spend so much. I'm like, well, let me just go through the first year and see what it's like. and it's been reasonable. So
she's young.
Yeah, exactly.
They start hitting you like when they hit senior and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like Diane reminded me this morning, we want to board the dog. So then it's Bordetella. And Bordetella is like what, $40 a pop.
Yeah.
Oh, and we give them vitamins too. Man, I'm just scaring myself. Well, there's old age vitamins, right? For creaky joints and stuff.
I have young age vitamins.
Well, yeah, that's true. So that you don't need the old age stuff.
Or I probably will.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
How big will River get? With she like 50?
No, she'll be like 70 to 80.
Oh, that's big.
Yeah.
And she's lanky, so she'll be So will she stay lanky? So she'll be.
So what the normal growth pattern is get to full size, like height at 1 year, and then the next year they fill out.
They fill out and get bulkier, but they're never like they're not like bulldog, or they're not.
No. This is a European, which is less thin. They're a little bit beefier than the American Dobermans because for some reason we bred them to be skinny, since that's what the U.S. likes. But over in Europe, they're like, we like a big, strong dog.
What made you get
a bulldog?
What made you get a Dobie?
I've always wanted one.
Okay.
And then as I started to think about getting dogs, I just did a bunch of research and really latched on to the breed and the way they operate and all of that stuff. So it just felt like a good fit. So
I'm scarred by Dobies. When I was going to college, I was doing painting and stuff, like general contracting to get through school. And I remember, and you can tell this was like 40 years ago or something. I still remember it. I was painting a living room, and this lady had a Doberman, and she put up a child gate between the Doberman and me painting. And this dog glared at me like every minute of every day. And it scared and I'm like, she's going to leap over that child gate, and she's going to rip my heart out. Right. And it was just staring at me, like not a happy stare. And I was, so it took me forever. Cause I'm like, I'm painting and I'm looking, I'm watching my back. Right. I'm painting and I'm looking.
She was just
she's
her job. Like that's that. Yeah. I mean, that's they protect. And so anything that's abnormal, like, as they age, if you're in a room with them, they will always face the door.
Really? Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So just like that's what makes them happy.
Well, that's their job, right? That's their role.
Yeah.
All right. I'm ready.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean you have to be ready, Joshua.
Oh, Robert.
You take as
we're growing.
you take as much time as you want.
I feel so loved. Okay. This will be, I think, our third episode on quiet quitting. Something that hit me about a week ago is, as you look at some of the aspects of quiet quitting, where it's I'm doing the minimal amount of work needed to achieve my job, or I reduce it even further and work a second job. As I thought about that, it's like, wait a minute, if you're in a high performing agile team where transparency and communication are the norm and you have good retrospectives, it feels like you're going to get called out pretty quickly on that. And so that approach to quiet quitting seemed really challenging to me. And I threw that out to Bob, and Bob threw out some great points about, well, there's all these other things that could happen. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and talk about if you need to quiet quit, and maybe we help you figure that out, or maybe you just talk to your teammates. I don't know. It's a topic we wanted to dig into, so we're off and running. Mr. Galen.
Cool. I do think, why don't we define quiet quitting? I know we had 2 episodes on it, but I'm narrow on it. But what do you think quiet? Not what everyone says, but what is it to you? And then maybe what is it to me? Before we dive in.
The way it's been portrayed in the media is that it is dialing back from that like hustle culture of more, do everything you can, and recognizing that you are paying me for my time for this amount of time. And I'm trading that for you. There are things I'm giving up to do this. So I'm going to actually dial it back. And if you pay me to do this project, like that's it. I'm doing this. Or if you're paying me for 8 hours a day, that's it. I'm doing it. I'm not going over, because otherwise I'm giving you a freebie. And what does that do to my life and my mental health and everything that goes along with that? So it really accelerated as COVID hit and people were working from home and everything that goes into that. So there's that aspect. Then there's the dialing it back even further. And because so many people are remote, you end up working a couple of jobs because maybe you can knock your stuff out in 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever it is. And you realize I can make another salary doing this. And then that
Right.
starts to create the separation where like I haven't quit, but I have. And like even that is strong wording, depending on what side of the fence that you stand on. Then, of course, me and just the way I'm wired, it's hard for me to do just the minimal amount. But there's times where I think, gosh, maybe I should do that for my own health and sanity. So those are the key flavors. Plus, then you just have the whole quitting of not being treated right, inflation, all of those things that you can just layer on top of that.
I was watching, I align with what you said. I'm not going to redefine it. I was watching briefly a Kazi or some stream that you were talking about yesterday or the day before. I just clicked in. I couldn't log in. I was going to comment. I was going to make a smart ass comment or something to you. Like, and you were talking about whip limit. And if you were, and it's recent enough.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And you were talking about, I think you liked excessive whip. So, you run better with lots of whip.
Right.
And you like lots of whip and being overloaded, if you remember.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about that, and I was like, but and you said you were wired that way. I think it was something like that's just the way I am. And I was thinking, well, not everyone's like that, right?
Right.
And you weren't projecting that on other folks, but I think quiet quitting. So in an agile team, so the question, can you quit quietly in an agile team? I think it's hard because it's going to be transparent, right?
In a good agile team, right? That's
but then I want to poke holes a little bit in like this high performance. When we use this term high performance agile team, and I do this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I say that phrase a lot. Well, what does that mean? And okay, if I use Josh, like if I use your definition, it's high whip limit, high engagement, high energy, high hours, or whatever. And I sustain that over time. And I think to myself, is that fair? Is that the definition of high performance for everyone? Is it if you go to low performance, meaning let's say you're disengaged, you're having a family issue or something like that, a death in the family, does that mean that you are quietly quitting? So I get on the surface, I think quit quietly is hard in an agile team, but I almost want to, in my own head, I'm reframing it to be, well, what is a high performance team look like? And what does a low performance team look like? And I don't know if it's fair for them to be like you. I'm not picking on you. I'm just using you as an example. I wonder if that's fair. And I've always equated it to that. They're running around. They're like when it's the teams on site. If people are running around and fully engaging and things like that, oh, that's a high performance team. So does that mean that a quiet team is an underperforming team? And I might argue, no, it depends. But am I going to stereotype them? So does that resonate with you? Do you have any reactions to where I'm going?
Yeah, and even to bring back that stream that I was talking about, I'm telling myself, or right now, I believe I'm happiest when my whip is set really high. But am I just making an excuse because that's what fills the day and, you know, gives me joy? And maybe it's like, well, if it gives me joy, just do it. So I'm wrestling with that personally. We can tackle that on other streams, but that, to me, what I boil it down to is, you know, you go back to that weighted shortest job first stuff of what's the most amount of value we can deliver in the least amount of time and effort. So what I look at is a high performing team is someone that does just that. That with minimal effort, effort's probably the wrong word, but without excessive effort, extra overtime, gnashing of teeth, all of that stuff, you deliver good value consistently. To me, that's what a high performing team is, and without stress. You know, one of the things that you think about baseball and pitching, so that's a thing that my son is into, and there's pitch counts of like, hey, you probably shouldn't go over 100 pitches, but then there's a difference of like high stress pitches versus it's the first inning, a couple of easy ground outs. Those pitches count, but not the same as it's late in the game, bases are loaded, 2 outs, stress is way up, right? That same thing of you want to do it with low pressure situations. There are people that get things done, but through a lot of pressure they put on them and their teammates, and that is unhealthy and is ultimately going to crack the team. And that's how I operated early in my career as a leader, because that's how I worked. So I started impressing that upon the teams of this is who we have to be, and it caused some people to crack. And man, that breaks my heart as I look back at it and realized what I did to those folks. And so I've sworn to not do that again. But that's the angle that I take with that.
Right. I think at high performance, one attribute is I think it's unique per team.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Even the value, Josh, even the so we're predictably delivering high value, but are we burning ourselves out? Right. So we've done it in the short term, but in the long term, we have attrition, or we're not kind to ourselves. And so to me, there's a yin and yang to high performance teams. Are they delivering value, but are they also maybe delivering internal value? Are they working hard, but they also, playing hard and giving themselves grace, or whatever? Maybe there's a yin and a yang, right? And there's a balancing act to it that we don't acknowledge. And I'm picking on myself because I normally think of one side of those balancing acts, productivity, collaboration, energy, passion, positivity. And if you don't have it, and a lot of those things, you align the negative side of them, you align with quiet quitting, right? And but what if they're in balance? What if it's okay? One final point I talk about, I learned this, I think, at Eye Contact. I was pushing for continuous improvement really hard. And I was pushing the coaches and the scrum masters for continuous improvement. And at one point, after like a year or 18 months, they gave me some pushback, and they said, everyone's tired of getting better. And I mean, it really, they were tired. They were just, they were tired, and they were like, we can't, how do we squeeze more? They were looking to me to give them wisdom. How do we squeeze more juice out of the lemon? And it hit me right between the eyes, and I'm like, don't let the lemons go for a while. And it was an epiphany for me. And that was, and these were high performance teams. And we just stopped pushing for continuous. We still did retros, etc., a little bit, but probably 3 to 4 months or so, we just took a pause and gave them a breath. And so on a curve, it was like an S curve. It's, the beginning of the teams, then they accelerated. Then we had this like pause. And if you looked at, to me, that was a high performance team all along. But you could perceive that pause to be quiet quitting. And it's not. Right. And an outsider, outsiders looking at it, like someone, an external coach or an external leader that comes in and just visits the team, they're like, well, what the hell's going on? I just attended a retrospective and everyone was sort of mailing it in. Well, you didn't understand. And maybe that's what I'm saying. Maybe there's a context, maybe there's a long-term context too as part of it.
Yeah, I think that's what really good agile coaches or scrum masters do, is they maintain that balance. At Dude Solutions, I had folks like that where they were always the ones out front reminding me, planning the things that we needed to do to maintain a healthy set of teams. Because again, I was always pushing and driving because that's how I was wired. I got better at it as I learned, but it wasn't my natural instinct. So to have partners there that was at the front of their mind, even though it wasn't at mine, that, to your point, the yin and yang was really healthy, and we got to healthier teams over time as we started to work together to make and shape that. I think about, it's football season and it's a very physical game, yet what many teams in the league have understood is that practicing in full pads every day delivers a worse product, because players are injured, players are worn down, bad things happen on Sundays. Bad things still happen on Sundays. That's just the way the game works. But they've dialed it back to optimize the performance of every athlete that's on their team. Even basketball does it, where some of the star players sit out if they had a road game last night and then a road day game the next day, where they had to leave one city at 2 a.m. and then play at like 4 p.m. the next day. So there's things like that as you look at things that we traditionally think of high performing and what they're doing to dial things back to ensure performance, we should be doing the same things with our teams and viewing that system, that group of people, as high performance, and what can we do to ensure that they can run at peak performance most of the time, because there's going to be times where you're going to have to dial it back, and to Bob's point, let them recover.
As you were talking, I was thinking about the Iverson, that quote, right, that we've talked about many times, but it's that difference. This is, it's practice, right? And it's a really good metaphor or model. Allen Iverson was small and he brought it. I never saw a game where he took time off, but he didn't really totally invest in practice, right? And because he was so invested in the games, but it's that balancing. So you could look at him as a quiet quitter, right? You could perceive him, you could perceive him as a quiet quitter, and that would be
and that's how he was portrayed, because that was towards the end of the playoffs. He had played a long season, 82 games plus another dozen or so, and to your point, he's small. He drives the basket a lot, so he just gets beat up. And the press was giving him a hard time about not going to a practice. And his response was, "Are we talking about practice?" It's like, and just like Bob said, on game night, he was 100%, gave everything he had. So you could never question the guy. But we as a society were like, dude, you're not practicing. How are you not out in practice going as fast and as hard as you can? So that started to crack open the door to like, wait a minute, maybe the right answer isn't crushing everybody every day. Maybe we should let them heal and respond, so that way they're in optimal shape for when the lights are on and the TV cameras are on.
I think you said something, at least that resonated with me, that's important. You tied it to the Scrum Master and you tied it to Dude a little bit. And so I don't think, so let's not let the world decide or observe and critique, and they're quiet quitting. And the world does it. Observers, people who come and go, leaders do that. Why don't we determine, so can an agile team quietly quit? Ask the Scrum Master, right? Or ask someone who's closest to it. And then if they are, what are they doing about it? Right? What are they doing to encourage that or to work it? Are they pulling leaders in? Is someone quietly quitting because they don't have a vision, or they haven't been connected to the overarching vision, or they've been treated poorly? And if the Scrum Master, I'm not trying to put a burden on them, but the person closest to the team who's coaching the team. So to me, that scrum master is the coach of the team. And if they think it's okay, then shut up and walk away. and if they don't think it's okay, well, then help them and help the team. What do you think? Is that where you sort of landed that, or that resonated with me?
Yeah, the words that are forming in my brain is a really healthy agile team will have addressed much of this in the conversations that they need to be had, or that they need to have to just be healthy, from the norms of what's okay for us as a team. What are we going to allow each other to do? What's the range that I can go from low to high? Then, as a teammate might start to dial back or get flustered or something, somebody's going to push in and say, "Hey, Bob, what's going on? Is everything okay? Can I help? Is there anything we can do? Or do you just need some space?" And then having that dialogue really helps support that person. And it will be rather unlikely that in a really supported environment, like a healthy agile team, that folks would leave, because that is a relatively rare thing. Now, there'll always be reasons, but your turnover will be lower with healthy agile teams.
As a takeaway from this episode, I was just thinking of, I need to challenge myself long term to stop using high performance agile teams. I don't think it's serving. I mean, in my head, I understand the balancing act and things, but I think when I say that, it sort of sets teams up for failure or whatever, or it sets it as like they're up on a pedestal or something, and you're either there or you're not. Like you're doing Scrum or not. That notion of, you're either not, you're doing Scrum or Fall, or you're doing Scrum. It's binary. I think there's a danger with influencers like you and I, or coaches, for us to use that. Our language sometimes sets it up as binary or extreme. I'm just sharing like a learning that I'm having from this episode, that I need to, just like I try to scrub my language, not talking about development like silos, like developers and testers. I probably need to scrub my language on, and be careful about high performance, and really talking about the yin and the yang. That's the point, rather than putting it up on a pedestal and only talking about one side of the performance.
I agree, and that's something that I've been trying to work on for a while. And I think I'm getting better, but not at the rate that I would like. I remember, gosh, probably a decade ago, when people had those like happiness surveys when somebody walks in, and you like rate yourself, and then you see how the team is. And I feel like I'm pretty in tune with the teams, but I still was like, what do you need that for? Like, we should be able to talk, when in reality, maybe there's times where somebody needs to raise a hand, and maybe they don't want to, put a spotlight on themselves. But there are things that are out there that other people were leading the charge on, that I didn't buy into fully, that as I've learned and grown, I appreciate more. Like, maybe there's some musical artists that I wish I would have recognized more and appreciated in the time. And this is one of those things where, dang it, I wish I would have done better and really understood what they were talking about and leaned into it more. But now that's on me to incorporate that as best I can. But it is, given how we were raised in the business world, where it was more, 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 more. And so we were rewarded for doing more, 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 more. And now, as leaders, we have this almost default expectation that that's how you win. But in reality, there's that unseen price that you end up paying with that give me more, where it has turned into this quiet quitting world, because you just crush people and don't reward them. You just expect more.
One of the things I was thinking about, back to your WIP limit, it's modeling. And so you were saying, you were using the language like, I'm wired this way. and I like it. It gives me joy. But that's put you in a leadership role. And that's valuable what you just said. That works. But at the same time, it's not just about you. It's about what you're modeling with the teams around you. So that's my question. So should you force yourself to become comfortable with whip limits? If not for you, for your teams, and to, like, you're giving them permission.
Yeah.
You know,
so I totally get you. My gut reaction, and I think it's the wrong one. My gut reaction is, well, my personal whip limit, that's for me. I won't bring that into my work whip limit life. And I think that's a fallacy. Like, I don't think it would do anything but bleed. So yeah, that's something
I would agree with you.
Because you think about people that like don't want to leave until the boss is left or something like that. So what kind of environment do I create when I operate the way that I do with teams, because I'm modeling something that's crazy?
Well, it's good for you.
Yeah.
But it's not good for everyone.
Right.
I remember years ago, I worked at a company, Micronosis, and we had a Japanese firm, and we were actually acquired by a Japanese firm. And I visited the Tokyo office, and I'd heard all these stories and stuff, but literally there, the development teams were at a table, and the manager, and it was an open, like a long table with computers, and the manager was at the head of the table. And the manager, like, you didn't leave until it was like a game of chicken or something. Like no one wanted to leave. Now, again, Japanese culture is different, and the men work and their wives, don't, and there's different dynamics there, right? So they're the primary breadwinners, etc. But it was just funny. And you could see people like typing, but like 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night, you'd see people looking around. It's like, who's going to go? Who's going to go? Yeah. And the boss would never go, right? The boss would, and so there was like this form of strength and weakness. But that's the model, right? That is a real thing. In Japan, it's very strong, but it's a real thing.
Yeah, there's one of the things that I have tried to do is model behaviors that I want the team to know it's okay to do. So taking vacations is very important. Me taking vacations at a time that might be perceived as crucial is important to me, to be able to give folks a signal that, like, hey, we all need our time. This is what you need to do. And if it's your vacation, go. And on vacation, I don't respond to things because I don't want somebody to feel that obligation when they're off doing whatever they want to do, that, oh gosh, I need to check. And I get on people's cases when somebody's saying, hey, I'm going on vacation, but I'll be checking. And I just like, no, you're not. Like, if I catch you doing that, we'll disable your account until you get back. Just things like that, where you have to encourage that, or leaving early and making sure it's visible, not sneaking out, but leaving early, saying bye to everybody, making sure they see, oh, okay, the boss on a Friday is leaving a little early, doing his thing. So that's okay. And encouraging that. There are some social situations that I'm not comfortable with, but as a leader, I have to do that, because there are people, like Bob said, that aren't like me, that really grow because of that. So I have to model that behavior and show them that, like, hey, this is who we are and this is how we roll. And even though I'm not super comfortable doing it, I'm doing it here with you because I'm going to support you.
Well, it's modeling that yin and yang.
Yeah.
It's not just leaning into where your comfort zone is, but your discomfort. Not that long ago, and it took me aback at the time, but Sean Bradshaw. So I sent, I forget exactly the context. It was a holiday weekend, and I sent an email, and I get up early, so I sent an email to Zenergy, and I copied someone. And to me, I wasn't expecting a return. Like I this was just me at like 5 a.m. in the morning, sending stuff out, doing my thing. And if I got an immediate response, I'd be shocked. And if it happened like after everyone got back from the holiday weekend, that would be fine. And I got a day later, Sean sent me an email, and I now in reflection, he was like thinking about it. Do I send it to him? Do I yell it? But he's like, Bob, you really need to stop sending emails on holiday weekends to folks, because it puts a burden on them that they feel like they have to work over the weekend. And I didn't get, and that was not my intention, but it doesn't matter. This yin and yang thing, right?
Right.
My intention isn't the only factor, is how are people interpreting it and how are they reacting to it? And that happened maybe a year ago, but you can tell that it's stuck with me. And, and it's sort of made me more balanced or more sensitive. I've been talking lately about the shadow. I did a lightning talk the other night at an Agile RTP meeting, and my little lightning talk was the shadow that you cast as a leader.
Oh, wow.
And Mary Thorne and I were talking about that at a keynote, and being aware, and I think the metaphor covers this, like we cast a shadow as a leader in multiple directions, and to be more self-aware of the shadow that you're casting and the impact it has to the organization.
So as we boil this down and wrap it up, it gets back to everything we talked about in the previous Quiet Quitting episodes. It's on you as a leader and your leadership team to build an environment where quiet quitting isn't a thing, where people are empowered to take care of themselves, encouraged to take care of themselves by you modeling those behaviors. So this is, I think, the third episode that we've done, but it still boils down to leadership setting the proper tone for long-term success. And I think it's as simple as that.
I would agree. And in a balanced fashion. So don't miss it. I want to make sure we want high performance isn't bad. I mean, Josh was talking about football. You know, it's fun to be on a winning team. We're a low performing football team and we haven't won a game this year.
Right.
So I'm going to quit that as well. So I think it's this balancing act that we need to strike. And I agree with you. I think leaders, and it's really hard, but to be balanced in that and to model that.
Okay. Have we stuck a fork in it, Bob?
I think so, Josh. So can we do the handshake? So for beautiful downtown Cary, North Carolina, I'm Bob Galen.
And super beautiful Fuquay, Marina, North Carolina, I'm Josh Anderson.
Shake
and bake.
Take care, y'all.